Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5 a.m. Club. What I'd love to do today is go through a very interesting book, and the book that I've chosen for this episode is entitled Amazing Decisions, a book that was published in 2019 on the 23rd of July, and the author is a fellow named Dan Ariely. So this book, in summary, delves into the psychology behind decision making, the process that happens in the background that enables us to come to a decision-making point and decide on something, cutting away options and selecting a particular path. So there's a number of lessons in this book, and we'll just step through them one by one and discuss them and see what it can teach us, what we can learn, and where it can take us. So the first key message from this book is the concept of predictably irrational, where we're called to recognize that even the most intelligent people make irrational decisions due to their predictable biases and the mental short takes that they take, the shortcuts that they take in their decision-making process. Understanding these biases, as outlined in this book, helps us understand the process, understand the gaps, understand the influences, and it helps us thereby mitigate the impact of these influences, helping us make better decisions where possible. The author goes on to talk about a concept called frame dependence. And what this means is that depending on the way information is presented to us, how it is framed to us, significantly impacts our choices. So why this is important is that it allows you, the decision maker, to at least understand that the people who are trying to influence you are manipulating the frames that they're presenting to you so as to influence the choice you make in a way that that choice that you do make may be better for them and less beneficial to yourself, but it also allows you to understand that there is a game being played. So what we're trying to do here, according to this author, is to at least free us up and teach us so that we can learn to identify the framing effects and reframe the options to make more rational decisions based on intrinsic value rather than pure manipulation. So it's important to understand that people influence the choices that we make by limiting those choices when there are actually a lot more choices that you can make It's not always A or B. It could be A or B, A and B, A, B or C. There's a number of scenarios that you have at your disposal, as long as you understand the game being played and to make sure that you are on equal terms with the other opponent. The author also talks about a thing here called relative preferences. We often evaluate options not in isolation, but comparatively. We need to utilize this knowledge to strategically position our offering or decision by anchoring it to a favorable comparison as opposed to a non-favorable comparison. So we need to be aware that there are defaults, and we need to understand and appreciate the power of defaults. The default option, even if seemingly arbitrary, heavily influences our choices due to inertia and bias towards a thing called the status quo. We need to be mindful of setting defaults carefully, both personally and professionally, to nudge ourselves and others to better choices. There's a thing that the author talks about here called the endowment effect. We irrationally overvalue things we already own, regardless of their objective value. This is quite profound. Recognizing this endowment effect helps us negotiate more effectively, and it divests us from unproductive assets and avoids a sunk cost fallacy. So really, really important stuff to know. There's another thing here that also influences us heavily, and it's called the social proof and the bandwagon effect. We tend to conform to the perceived majority, adopting their choices and opinions, regardless of how woke they are. Just because a few people say it doesn't mean that it's right. So what we need to do, where possible, is to leverage this social proof for marketing and decision making by highlighting the positive social influence associated with your chosen option. So we need to be on guard that we don't get sucked into the games that others are playing. And the last key point to come from this book is where the author talks about loss aversion. People do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure is one of the key messages. The pain of losing something is psychologically more significant than the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. Understanding and utilizing loss aversion to motivate action, incentivize desire behavior, and frame options effectively. Once again, we are in a game. So these lessons from Amazing Decisions provide valuable insights into the complexities of human decision making, emphasizing the importance of understanding biases, context, and emotional influences to improve personal and professional choices. Thank you and bye.